It's Lucas from Livewire, and I'm currently got Frank Turner here. This is a great English singer-songwriter. Your new album, Undefeated, drops next month. Are you excited for that? Really pumped?
I'm very excited. Thanks for having me today. Yeah, I am. I mean, I finished recording it last summer. We finished mixing it in sort of September or something, and this is my 10th album. I'm aware of how the game rolls, but like there is this sort of inbuilt time delay, which has to do with promo and vinyl pressing times and stuff. But basically, since last September, I've been restraining myself from grabbing random strangers off the street and dragging them into my house and going, "Listen to this," and we're now less than a month away from me not having to do that anymore. So I'm very excited. Yes.
No, fantastic. Well, you don't have to restrain me. I've had a little bit of a listen to the album myself, and I love it. I love it.
Oh,
I
that's very kind
absolutely
of you
love
to
it.
say. Thank you, man. Thank
No,
you.
that's okay. So just before we get into everything, there is something that I was really curious about. So in doing my research for this interview, I came across an interview that was kind of tied into something about Iron Maiden's Killers being your first record you ever bought. Is
Oh
that
yeah.
right?
Yeah, well, the first record that I own, my dad bought it for me from a record shop in a train station, if you can imagine such a thing existing in the 21st century. But
I could definitely
this
imagine they
was
exist all over the place in random spots.
yeah. This was in 1990 probably. Anyway, but yeah, so that was the first record that I owned, and it changed my life. I did wasn't My parents don't listen to rock and roll music, so I wasn't really familiar with drums and guitars and that kind of thing. And the Ides of March kicked in, and a light switch flicked in my brain, and now I'm here, and that's the shortest autobiography you're ever going to hear.
No, and it's a fantastic, great starting point, I think, for that type of music. So no,
Yeah,
I love it.
absolutely. I mean, Maiden are a first in, last out kind of band. Like, do you know what I mean? You can prize the rest of my record collection away from me before you get to my Popular Killers.
Cool. All right. So basically, like you said, or like we've said before, Undefeated is the 10th record in a massive back catalogue of music that you've got.
Mhm.
But this is the first one you fully self-produced and self-recorded. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes, that's right. So basically, my lockdown project, when lockdown kicked in the UK, I was like, I need a hobby, like, or else I'm
Mm.
gonna drink myself to death or whatever. So I've made a lot of records, and I've sort of been involved in the arrangement side of every record I've done, but the production, as in like setting compressors and choosing microphones and stuff, that was new territory for me. So I got really deep into that, and I ended up building a studio down my garden. And initially, the idea was to produce other bands, which I have been doing. But after sort
Mm.
of 3 years of doing that, it was when it came to making this record for myself. It was, and thinking about who was going to produce it. It was just like, wait a minute, I could do it. And which may have been complete madness, or it might be genius. Who knows? You can
Yeah.
judge for yourself. But
It's a good call.
well, that's kind of you to say. I mean, it just felt right. I'm not sitting here saying I should have produced every record that I've made, but it's just like at this point, it's like, I know how this record goes. My band, the Sleeping Souls, who are the best band in rock and roll, and we worked the songs up for a month or two in the rehearsal room, and all the parts were kind of worked out, and it was just kind of like, we just need to get this on tape with great performances, and that's what we did. And it was so nice for me recording at home. I live by the sea. The sea's just over there, so we were kind of, it's an English sea, by the way, so calm down.
Yeah.
But like we were like swimming in the morning, and then kind of going to the studio in the afternoon and recording, and it was bliss. I felt very privileged to be able to do
Sounds like
that.
the dream.
Yeah, I mean, it was really, really nice.
Yeah. So that kind of actually leads into my next question, because obviously this is something that you've entirely produced by yourself. Did you pull any inspiration from other collaborators that have produced records in the past and gone, oh, these are little cool ideas. I'm going to take these and put this into this record?
Oh, totally. I've been super fortunate to work with some of the best producers in the world. I've worked with Rich Costey and Butch Walker and people like that. And I mean, almost one of my annoyances actually was that, like, I've sat in studios with some of the best producers, engineers in the world, setting microphones and compressors and all the rest of it, when I was playing Snake on my phone while they were doing it, and not, do you know what I mean? Not kind of taking notes. And I
Yeah.
look back on that now, and I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah.
But I mean, in a way, there was a sense of culmination, a sense of like all the things I've learned over the years sitting in studios, all the little tricks, and all the rest of it, sort of came together. It's not my last record, but it definitely felt like everything sort of coming together in a really nice way.
Yeah, that was going to lead something I was going to talk into later, because I had a joke that I had lined up. But you spoke in an interview about musicians like Low and Wainwright and the Hold Steady being
Hmm.
artists that write about adulthood, and this is very much
Yeah,
another kind of album that sits within that scope.
thank you.
Yeah, expand on that, because I love the idea that, like, you can't hold on to the youth forever. You got to sing about what's happening now.
Right. I mean, I just think, well, for lots of different reasons. I mean, first of all, I prize honesty as above everything as a songwriter for myself. And like, I'm not going to name names, but there are bands who kind of put out a new single that's about high school, and I'm like, you guys are in your 50s. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like stop it. Like,
Yeah.
it's creepy. Like, ugh. And also like it's sort of slightly nakedly going for a certain market kind of thing in a way that just feels really kind of gross to me. Also, you know, ultimately there are tons of great new bands who are younger, and they can write those songs, and they should write those songs, and I hope they did, and they are writing those songs, and happy days. But for me, you know, like I can't sit here and write a song about being 22. That would be ridiculous. You know, so and for me, as you mentioned, like as a listener, I've always loved. I remember the first time I really got into Loudon Wainwright, I was hearing, you know, a song, Your Mother and I, which is a song explaining divorce to his children. Like it was just so mind blowing to me. It was like, what a thing to write a song about. And suddenly you realize, as much as I love the fact that lots of rock and roll is about first kisses and staying awake all night and you know, all that kind of stuff, which is great, but it's like, you know, it's been a while since my first kiss. I don't mean to brag, but you know, and so you know, writing a song about writing songs about my life as it actually is just seems like I mean, it's almost in some ways it's the only real honest option for me.
Yeah, for sure. And the joke that I did have was that obviously Loudon Wainwright's now in his mid-70s. Are we going to expect Frank Turner records in 2050 when you're about around the same age?
I sincerely hope so. It's contingent on a couple of things. It's contingent on me still having things to say. I mean, every time I make a record, I don't make records because it's the thing that I do. There are some bands who write songs in the studio, which seems completely odd to me. You know, I wait until I have enough material and then I make a record. You know, I don't want to just do it because it's what I do. So it depends on me still having things to say. It also depends on whether or not anybody wants to hear me say them, which isn't up to me. You know,
sure.
But you know, one of my probably my all-time songwriting hero is Leonard Cohen, and Leonard Cohen was still touring in his 80s. Do you know what I mean? And I just think that's incredible. You know, you probably have quite a few more days off at that point, but I love the idea of doing this for the rest of my life. And I hope that I'm lucky enough to be able to do that.
For sure, and I hope you do as well. Before we were so rudely interrupted by my horrific internet, something I wanted to talk about is there was a song. So I actually got to see you at the Tivoli last year in Brisbane.
Oh yeah, what a show! Fun.
Yeah, incredible show. I'll be honest, I hadn't heard a Frank Turner song until the first song that you played.
Oh wow! Okay, wonderful.
So my first experience to you was walking in the door and hearing, I don't even remember what song it was, but I was blown away with the energy and everything. And it was, yeah, honestly, if it had not have been for about a week later, I saw Electric Callboy for the second time. That probably would have been one of the best shows I'd seen all year.
Well, that's kind of you to say. Thank you.
No, but at that show, you played Do One, which at that point, I don't know if that had been released yet.
No, it had not.
So getting to see like a bunch of people who obviously knew your material very intimately and very well, to then see a bunch of people and even you getting everyone involved with the do's was super fun to see. What I actually want to talk about, though, is that you did that song in German as well.
I did. Yes, I did, which is slightly melting my mind, I might add, at the moment.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so basically, I have a friend called Ingo who's in a German band called the Do Nots, who are amazing and a very big band in Germany. And I sung on one of their songs many years ago, and I sort of called in the favor, and he did it with me as a duet. The problem that we have is that recording that, I don't speak German. I can pronounce it when it's written on the page. Recording is fine because you do one line and then you press stop and then you do it again and you get it right. The problem is that it's gone down really well in Germany and they want me to do it on telly, which means I have to actually learn it, and not just learn it, I have to learn all of it because Ingo is not exactly going to follow me around for my promo schedule. So I have to learn the whole song. And I mean, on my kitchen table right here, I had the German lyrics just printed out and just sat there, and I was trying to learn like 2 words every day for a period of time and all this kind of thing. And now the next problem is that I've just recorded it in Spanish, and I'm doing French next week as well, and like, which is great. You know, and it's a nice way of kind of paying some respect to an audience in a non-English speaking country, you know, and just sort of saying, you know, I get it. I'm a visitor here, and all the rest of it. But it like I say, it is trying to remember the words in two languages is enough already. Let's say that. Do you know what I mean?
And then you've thrown yourself the gauntlet of trying to learn it in 4.
Yeah, I mean, oh god. I mean, we'll see how it goes. I mean, if it lands in those territories, then happy days, and we'll do it. But yeah, it's quite tough.
Yeah, perfect. And then another song that I want to talk about on the album, it's the newest single, Letters. That is beautiful. It's like, I read about what the description of the song was about. Essentially, it was a pen pal that you had when you were a child that you no longer kind of fell out of contact with. How does it feel when you're like, because when I was listening to that song for the first time, I felt the rawness of like the emotion of the singing. And like, the question I have is like, do you ever, when you write a song like that, do you ever second guess opening your vulnerabilities and weaknesses up like that? Because like, it is a scary thing.
It is. And the answer to your question is I try not to. I mean, I have this thing that I call the wince, right? And what I mean by that is like, if I'm writing lyrics and I write a line that makes me go, then it's like, keep that in, because what you've done there is you've provoked a reaction in yourself. And like, if the point of art is to provoke reaction and to say meaningful things, if it makes me kind of go, oh god, then it's like, then that's got to stay. Do you know what I mean? And like, obviously, there are moments when you're recording, and particularly when you're sort of first playing a song live, where you're kind of like, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing this to myself? I mean, I'm 10 albums in, I'm kind of used to it now. And in terms of the, like, other people, like my friends and my family are pretty kind of used to the fact that I'm probably going to say some heavy shit on a record. And they're kind of, when a new album comes out, I think my mum's generally kind of like, what's he said now? You know what I mean? So people are kind of used to it now, myself included, to a degree. But yeah, it's definitely, you have moments where you're like, should I be sharing this or whatever? But that act of sharing is, if it's done right, is the kind of most impactful bit of what I do. And when people connect with it, that's a reassuring thing.
For sure. One of the last things before I get into the big thing I want to do at the end is, with the album now dropping in about 4 weeks' time almost, is there any particular song on the record you're excited to finally have out in the open for people to take in?
I mean, yes. I mean, and obviously, I'm duty bound to say all of them. But you're not supposed to pick favorites. You know what I mean? It's like choosing between. But I mean, I will say there's a song on the record called "Somewhere in Between," which is talking about the wince and stuff like that. I mean, that was a hard song to write, and we spent a lot of time working that one up in the rehearsal room to get the arrangement right. But it's one of the more intense lyrics that I've written, and it's sort of about imposter syndrome to a degree, and it's about insecurity and all that sort of thing, and it's a raw piece of writing, and I hope that people connect with it in the way that I intended. I mean, going to the last question, it's definitely a song where I wake up in the middle of the night occasionally and be like, oh god, what have I done? But I played it to one of my best friends, and at the end of it he was just like, Jesus Christ, dude. Like, in a good and a bad way, I think. Mainly good, hopefully. Mainly good. But I'm excited for people to hear that song.
I'll definitely have to go back and give that one more listen and just trying to take in what you've said there. So yeah, brilliant. Excellent. Well, that pretty much brings it to the end, but there's something I want to do just very quickly. So as someone who has been writing live music now for a few years and taking in shows and stuff, I'm always fascinated to get an idea into the perspective of live musicians and what their experience with live music is as a patron. So I've got 5 really quick questions I'd like to ask you. I'm calling it the Live 5, and you're going to be the first one to do it.
I love it. I'll try and do quick answers. As you've probably noticed by now, I talk a lot, so I'll try.
No, that's okay. Literally 1 word, 2 answers, perfect. That will work for me here.
I'll try. I can't promise. I'll try.
No, that's all good. And even if you want to elaborate, feel free. First one though, who's the best band you've ever seen live?
I mean, I knew you were going to ask that, and it's a hard question. I probably there's a band called Melt Banana from Japan, a Japanese kind of insane Japanese punk band. I saw them live in 1999. I got a poster from the show. I took it home and I wrote on the poster. I put it up on my wall and I got a pen and I wrote on it like, "What's the point in even trying?" Because they were so good that it was just like, I'll never see a show that good ever again. And I'm not sure if I ever have.
Yeah, cool. What's the song that if it plays live, you know you're not going to have a voice in the morning? Like when you see it live.
I mean, well, that's a good question. I mean, I'm tempted to say Meatloaf's "Bat Out of Hell" because it's such a banger, but like, unfortunately, I'm not going to hear that live again, or
Yep.
at least not its original incarnation. I will say there's a uh, we do a lot of shows with a band called Flogging Molly, who are old friends of mine. They have a song "If I Ever
Love
Leave
them.
This World Alive," which is such an important song for me as a person. You know, it means the world to me, and every time they play it, I'm on the side of the stage or in the audience or wherever I am, screaming my ass off.
Yeah, perfect. What's one of the best venues in the world, you think?
Oh, that's a good question, and there are many of them to choose from. And I should probably be neat and choose somewhere in Australia, but I'm actually going to pick. There's a venue in Nottingham, England called Rock City, which is the coolest venue in the world.
Yeah, perfect. That's going to be one I'll add to the list. Um, what's the number one band on the bucket list you haven't seen yet?
That's a very good question. You know, I'm sticking with my Japanese theme. There's a band called Otoboke Beaver, who are a Japanese punk band who I'm completely obsessed with at the moment. And we actually played a festival with them in Hong Kong last year, and we were on at the same time. And it was just like, why has this happened? So I've still not seen them live. I really want to see them live.
Yeah, amazing. Last question. What's the live music moment you'll never forget?
Oh, I mean, I'm fortunate enough to say that there are many, but like off the top of my head, I was fortunate enough many years ago to see Billy Bragg covering Waterloo Sunset at Waterloo Bridge as the sun went down, and that was pretty untoppable.
Incredible. Love that. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Despite all the internet issues and that, I do appreciate coming back around.
It's an absolute pleasure, and we were nudge nudge wink wink. We'll be back in Australia pretty soon, and hopefully we will cross paths then.
Fingers crossed. Just to go back over it again, Undefeated, 10th studio album by English singer-songwriter Frank Turner, drops in record stores and on streaming services May 3rd, 2024. Pre-order links and stuff will probably be linked somewhere below in the article. Thanks very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.